And just like that, somehow, we're halfway through yet another week. Hello, everybody. I'm Russ Kane, flying solo today because Neil's doing Neely stuff. I have no idea what he's doing, but he begged and no, he didn't. He just asked if we could have the day off, and I said, "Of course you can, Neil Long, because the king of comedy needs to regroup." King of everything that's marvellous within a 5-mile radius of the Tolworth Tower off the A3. Right, it is. What's the date today? It is Wednesday, 5th of March. Hello. Hope you're okay. Hope everything is going well. I had an interesting. I'm going to share something with you. It's very personal. And I was debating, then I want to get into other stuff as well, but it's very personal. And I wanted to, it's weird. I've written a lot about grief. It's all right. It's going to be an upbeat show, but I just wanted to share this, see your views. I've written a lot about grief. And of course, now that I'm a celebrant, I have to deal with endless funerals. I've got about 5 or 6 on the go. 3 back to back next week. I got some, stuff this week and meetings and all the rest of it. So it's part of my life as long as alongside doing radio and of course trying to write the new novel, but put that to one side for the minute. And yesterday, well, I'll backtrack a little bit. I'll see how you feel about this. Okay. I had a call very late December last year. Was I available for a funeral service on Christmas Eve? And I had virtually no time to prepare. It was all very sudden. So I said, okay. I mean, complete stranger, by the way, not anybody I knew. And I said, okay. So Christmas Eve, I went and did the funeral service. And it was a particularly bleak day, but it seemed like an absolutely charming man. I won't mention any names. That would be incorrect. So did that. And then I was asked, would I be part of the memorial service, which was yesterday? I said I'd be honoured. And they said, well, you're back by special request. I said, that's really very nice. So I went back to this magnificent church. I'd never been there before in my life. It was in Notting Hill, which is in London. If you're watching this in America, beautiful part of London. An incredible church. If you go onto my Facebook site, which is just Russ Kane on Facebook, you'll see that the interior of this church was stunningly beautiful. It was a long, complicated service, went wonderful with live music and readings, and I did my part, and the vicar, who was excellent, did his part. It was a multi-faith service, okay? And then I was invited to go to the luncheon afterwards. Now, coming in from Spain, it's Chrissy Richards. Hi, Chrissy. So anyway, I was invited. Now, I always say no. Oh, thank you very much. Yes, I was on Talk Radio on Monday night, 11 o'clock till midnight with Petri. We had so much fun. The best show would be if they could do Petri and me in the ad breaks. It's disgusting. It's so naughty. But because we're mates, we can get away with it. We rip into each other something terrible. And all the producers and everybody, they're sitting behind the glass and you can hear them in your earphones cracked up. It's very naughty. But thank you for that, Mark Elvis Hampson. I appreciate it. I love doing the show. And I got 2 more dates coming up with that, which is nice. Anyway, back to my story. I always say no. Every time I do a funeral, by the way, I do weddings and all sorts of other things, but funerals. And they will say, oh, please come to the drinks afterwards. I say, no, thank you. I always think, and I do believe this, that it's time for family and time for people who are close friends. Remember, I don't know. These people are strangers to me. Yeah. And I feel genuinely it's intrusive of me to be there. I'd rather the family and friends. So I always, after the service, I leave straight away. Okay, say my goodbyes and I leave. And this time I made an exception because the luncheon was in a beautiful Chinese restaurant, which was the deceased favourite restaurant in the West End of London. Fancy pants. I go there, and to my utter amazement, remember, most raising a drink, let's raise a glass to so-and-so who's passed, it's usually in a pub, which is great. That's what it is. And they can remember and reminisce and all the rest of it. It's lovely. And I think that's part of the healing process as well. I don't want to get too deep in it. It's also nice to have a drink in a pub, but it's also part of the healing process, yeah? I walk into the restaurant thinking, well, it'll be a buffet or something with somebody who come around with little bits. And I'll say, no. Must be at least 100 people, possibly more. Full sit-down lunch. Full sit-down with what can I have? Your name, sir? My name's this. Oh, you're on table so-and-so. Now, I don't know a soul. Don't know anybody because I don't know the family, obviously. And I sit down, and this is a big do. There's a film camera, proper camera, filming everything for memories. Huge screen been put up. Stage has been made. And each table, is got about 10 minutes. At least 100 guests, could be more. And it was okay. I'm chatting to the people. I don't know anybody. I'm just making polite conversation. And then something happened. And this is the point of my story. And I wonder how you feel about it. I'm kind of hesitating before saying this, to be honest with you. Up on the screen came, I'll just say hello. Hope your head is feeling better, Linda. Linda Dave fell over. Notice I didn't say had a fall because that would make her 108. So Linda, who has got a son, I believe, called Phil Dave. I don't know if you ever heard of him. No, I've never heard of him either. And anyway, Linda fell over and bashed her head. So I hope you're feeling better. Anyway, I'm sitting there, and this chap who had passed was 12 years younger than me. 12 years younger. And was a big deal, had a very successful career, and enjoyed life to the max. And he got cancer out of the blue. Absolutely out of the blue. And there was this film of him talking to camera, saying goodbye to everybody. By now he's in a nursing home. He's a young guy. Skiing, running around, rushing around. He's a young guy. He knows he's going to die. So he does this film to everybody. I got completely triggered. I'm just going to say it. I got completely triggered. And I made my excuses and I had to leave. And I was trying to process this. And it came out the blue. I mean, this is what I do, apart from the radio and the books and everything like that and public speaking. This is what I do for a living, right? It's what I do. And it just triggered me totally. And it just projected me back to when my wife was dying of cancer. I couldn't take it. Couldn't take it at all. And this is, I'm the person who has to give lectures about grief. I've written about grief. There's a book where I've got a whole chapter in, apparently, about grief. And articles I've written for newspapers. And I always say, well, there is no statute of limitations on grief. You don't know when the hell it's going to hit you. You have no idea. And it hit me like an express train. And it was a beautiful day yesterday. I wanted to stay for the lunch. Everybody was very charming. The food was obviously going to be excellent. I hadn't eaten a thing, by the way. Hadn't eaten. I'd had some water and a prawn cracker because I could see that, it was going to be a proper feast. And I just had to leave. And it threw me. It really, really threw me. So, of course, what I did is I came back and threw myself into my work because I'm like crazy busy at the moment. And I just threw myself into my work, which is my safe space, my solace. It's my comfort zone. Hello to you, Robert Van Buren, DJ to the stars and makes clocks as well. And I'm pleased to say that Linda Dave is getting better. We'll come on to falling over in a minute. I wonder how you felt. Do you get triggered? there's suddenly something come out of the blue and just boom. I'm there in a professional capacity. I've got my professional face on, my professional suit, all the rest of it. And I wasn't expecting that. And so I just had to leave. Mark Elvis Hepson says this, and I wanted to share that. I hope I'm not oversharing. It says this: I find grief spelling will come and go in my life, mainly memories that flood in and then go, yeah, the memories just pour in. I just couldn't take this lovely man. It was too sad, but it was very, very triggering for me. Good afternoon, Mr. Good afternoon, Nigel David. Good afternoon to you. So that was it. That's what happened yesterday. A magnificent memorial service, which I was truly honoured to have been asked to be part of. The place was absolutely packed. The vicar was brilliant. The service was magnificent. There was a proper organ for the hymns, they were belting out through all the organ pipes. There was a wonderful singer and a pianist singing fabulous tunes. And hymns and appropriate. It was a lovely service. And then, of course, everyone at the lunch was saying, and how did you know so-and-so? I went, I didn't. I never met it. I never met them. Oh, it's all a bit odd. Anyway, that was it. So the upside of that was I reached out to the Celebrant Circle, which I'm part of, pleased to be so. And it's a very, very supportive community. And I explained what had happened, and they came back and they said, yeah, you got to take care of yourself as well, which you do, because I am surrounded by grieving people. And you can't let it affect you. But that got to me personally. Normally, nothing, because I'm no use to anybody in that capacity. If I'm, emotional, of course not. They don't need me to be emotional. I'm there to be the rudder, the steering to get this ship through. It could have gone horribly wrong, couldn't it? But that's my point. So you never know when grief is going to strike. And I just say, we're all human. We're all just people doing our best. So, have you seen the new Agatha Christie show? On BBC, of course it's on BBC. Have you seen the new, any views? I lasted, I was very tired yesterday. I wasn't in the mood. And my dinner was a single malt. I'll be honest, that was my supper. I had a sandwich and a single malt. That's all that's all I wanted an early night. But I thought I'd give it a peek, this new thing, towards zero. And if you've seen, I'm not going to say anything. I'll give it another go because I'm an Agatha Christie nut. I love Agatha Christie, but boy, oh boy. They play fast and loose, don't they, with historical accuracy? That's all I can say. If it's set in the 30s and 40s, really? Really? Come on. Come on. I love your views on it. And if you get, what is it? If you've grieved, what triggers you? Because I think, and it's something that's never talked about, people say times. All right, let's dive in on this, right? People say, time's a great healer. Time is a great healer. It's not. It's crap. It's not true. What time is, it gives you the wherewithal to learn to cope. That's what time does. Time gives you the ability. This is just my view. I haven't written a book, not the world's leading expert on it, for God's sake, just a punter like you. Yeah. Time gives you the ability to try and learn coping mechanisms or just learn to cope. But also the other thing, and Neil would be very hot on this, it's okay to acknowledge those feelings. Does that make sense? See where I'm going? I think it's okay. I felt embarrassed. I was walking down the street in the West End yesterday, having had to leave. Beautiful sunshine. I was heading back to the tube station. I thought, oh, God, you idiot. Come on, for Christ's sake. And then I thought, no. It's okay to acknowledge that you're grieving. That's all right. Oh, good. My dog's flea treatment is due. All the updates as they occur. Now, this is coming in. This is interesting. Mark says this, Mark Hampson. Music, particular songs can set me off. Oh, dear God. Dear God. I was at a summer barbecue for a very, very well-known person, I'm not going to say who, very well-known, who was extremely close to their dad. And I met the dad many, many times. And there was a live band playing. It was a beautiful event, sunny day, gorgeous grounds that we were in. And the band played Dance with My Father again. No, Living Years. Played Living Years. What is it? Genesis or whatever. It's Mike and the Mechanics, which is all about losing your dad. And my host was in floods. And had to walk away and walk around the garden area. And I thought, oh, yeah. So Mark's point about, particular songs absolutely, it can be anything. It could be. Now, what are you saying? Fat Scotty. Hello, fella. How are you? Thank you. It's funny enough. I was thinking about you. I thought, hadn't heard from you in ages. You've probably got a career. That's why you're busy. Okay, I saw that Scott Lyons. Hang on. What is this? Now then, where were we? Oh, some time ago. Right. Chrissy Richards coming in from Spain. Yes, things trigger. Pink Floyd, Wish You Were Here. My son. Oh, put it up. Oh, God. Chris's son died 2 years ago, this coming June. And Pink Floyd, Wish You Were Here, obviously has meaning. Yeah. There's certain songs I don't like to hear. Certain songs it's funny because in literature, especially movies and books, they always think haunting is and somebody dressed in a sheet, and all this crap. That's not being haunted. That's not being haunted at all. Being haunted is you're walking down the street and suddenly somebody walks past and you smell a perfume and boom, you're put back. Or somebody who reminds you of someone you've lost, and you see them walking down the street and just a complete stranger, turning a corner, and for a minute you think, oh, and then you think, that'd be daft. They're gone. It can't be them. They've gone. That'd be silly. Oh, God, what is this? Fat Scotty says, sincere apologies, dear boy. Much life nosing everything up. If you're absolutely bored, I'll fill you in. Oh, yes, fill us in. Tell us what's going on. Come on. We're all pals here. That's it. It's not Radio 4. It's interesting. It was a thing just before the show. I came up on one of my. Oh, hang on. Oh, God. Now what's happened? Rosemary Jessup, your life is such a. It's like an episode of West Enders. I had a bad night last night. Oh, Christ. Police and ambulance at a train station. Thankfully, he was saved. I think we need a little more detail than that, Rosie. A little more detail. Did somebody try to jump? I go there when other people won't say it, That's not good. Jeez. I remember we had people... we were interviewing when we had the studio a million years ago, when they thought we needed it. We had people in from the railways, and everyone always goes, oh, that poor person who jumped in front of a train. I mean, it's ghastly, right? It's ghastly. There's nothing good to say about it. It's horrific. And you can imagine the mental anguish they've got to be before they do something so drastic and dramatic and fatal. But what no one ever talks about, ever, is the effect it has on the driver. He's minding his own business. Boom, somebody jumps. Holy God. And they don't recover. It's the most terrible trauma. I mean, obviously for the family of the deceased, horrible. Of course it is. But for the driver, you don't want to be seeing that. You really don't. Many of them don't trouble. Now, what's Rosie saying? My son-in-law. Oh, God, Rosemary, I'm sorry. My son-in-law didn't make it at 19 years ago. So are you saying... I'm trying to piece this together. I'm trying not to put my foot in it and be a complete idiot. But you were at the train station last night. You saw police and ambulances. Are you saying that that triggered you because of what may have happened? And I don't know the circumstances to your son-in-law. Is that what you're saying, Rosemary? Have I got that right? Okay. We don't know. Yeah, horrible. Horrible. Oh my God, I'm so sorry. Yes. So I have pieced this correctly. What a sad, horrible story. I'm so sorry. Got to tell you something. And I'm saying this to Rosemary. I'm saying this to everybody watching all over the world. When people die, in the great course of life, it's part of life. Death is part of life. Yeah. Okay. And so when I do those services, it is when it's sad. It's sad for the family. It's sad for the friends, but it is part of life. You get to a certain age, kind of that's it. Although worryingly, a load of the funerals that I do marriages as well. By the way, got a huge one coming up. A lot of the people are much younger than me. Scary as hell. I am dreading doing a suicide. Dreading it. Two things that I'm dreading. One is an infant, which I may or may not take the job, and the other is a suicide. That is tough. Now, Mark is saying this. As an ex-firefighter, there were times oh, God. Oh. I don't know how you do it, man. I couldn't do it. As an ex-firefighter, there were times we had to walk the track after train incidents. Jesus. Oh, God. I was watching a strange little documentary, which didn't ultimately help at all. I watched it about the Moorgate train disaster, which Mark Hampson, as an ex-firefighter, will be familiar with. 1975. If I've got this wrong, yell at me and correct me. 1970. It was a documentary about the Moorgate train disaster, right? 1975. Passenger tube train pulling into Moorgate, doesn't slow down at all. Goes full speed straight into the. There's a runoff tunnel, and it goes straight into the runoff tunnel. Hits the wall. Right. And Scotty's picked this up. Moorgate, 50th anniversary last week. A very odd incident indeed. And Nigel David, I used to profile CCTV for the rail. I had to produce video and oh, God, Nigel. You guys are so brave. I couldn't do this. All right, here's the thing. So the train goes smashing into the wall. The first carriage is turned into like a V shape because it's going full pelt, right? Didn't slow, didn't touch the brakes. The second carriage then piles into the first carriage, concertinaing the whole thing to like the size of a Fiat 500, right? Third carriage gets smashed up as well. Further down the track, further down the carriages towards the end of the train, they felt a jolt, but had no idea what the hell had happened. 42 people died. 42. Irony being, of course, if you were a regular commuter, you knew, and I do the same thing myself. I try to remember where the exits or where the connecting, walkways are on every station, because otherwise you're at the wrong end of the platform. So the regular commuters on the Moorgate train knew that the exit was by the front of the train, so they were all there. People at the back were incredibly lucky. Anyway, it took the firefighters, of which Mark Hampson is one. It took firefighters over 12 hours because the crash was so condensed. Some of the gaps were only 12 inches. We're talking about a tube train, and all that you got is 12 inches to try and work your way through. Christ. It took up to 12 hours to get the last of the injured out. It was absolutely awful. Now, The mystery with this, here's the mystery. And I just found this short documentary by chance. It's Fat Scotty, Scott Lyons is his name, really. There was no evidence to suggest that driver Leslie Newsome committed suicide, even when the train was passed defect-free. So what Fat Scotty is referring to is there's what's called on a tube train a dead man's handle. Sounds a bit grim, but it makes perfect sense. That if, God forbid, the train driver has a stroke or has a heart attack, he won't be able to hold this handle properly. The handle will be released and the automatic brakes will come on straight away and slow the train down. The emergency brakes will come into effect the moment the dead man's handle is released. Okay? When they did all their investigations, I'm trying to keep this as clean as I can. Leslie Newsome, the train driver's hand, was still on the dead man's handle. He hadn't let it go. Hadn't applied the brakes. He had in his pocket quite a bit of money because he had said to his wife when he left home that day, it's always fascinated me, that's how I remember this. He said, I'm going to buy our daughter a car. So he had the cash in his pocket. That was it, 270 quid. Thank you, Scott Lyons. He had 270 quid in cash with him to buy his daughter a car. And he'd already done 3 round trips to Moorgate incident-free. So the train was running fine. He was fine. No one knows what the hell happened. So it wasn't until, in fact, a year later that a journalist on the Sunday Times, who by chance, his own father, had died in that crash. Figure that. His own father had died in that crash. He wrote a big article, big investigation for the Sunday Times, and he posited the idea that Leslie Newsome had committed suicide. There was no evidence to say that he had. So that's always kind of been hanging around like a bad smell. Unlikely. You know, you're going off to buy your daughter a car. You got 270 quid cash. You've got plans for after your shift. That's not a way you're going to go, is it? Yes, and his name was Lawrence Marks. What a twist. That was the journalist. The journalist's name was Lawrence Marks. Absolutely right. I'd like you on the show, Fat Scotty, if I could do it, and I don't know how to do it. How do I do this? I'll tell you what I'll do. See if I can do this. Hang on. All right. I'll tell you how I'm doing this. Bear with. Hang on, gang. Right. Paste. Right. There we go. You can join the show. There you are. You can join the show. You want to come on the show? Join the show. It'd be lovely to have you. You can all come on. I don't mind. Why not? What the hell? We're not Radio 4. Do what you like. Be nice to have you. Just click on the link and you can join the show as long as you're not an idiot. That's why Phil Dave's not here. Now, this was coming in from Rosemary, who we have very interesting chats on Facebook. So there's been very interesting little messages, mostly about the weather and the horses and the dogs and the vet fees and stuff like that. I wrote a letter of thanks to the train driver because of him. And after 2 days, we finally had closure, horrific as it was. That is a lovely thing to do, Rosemary. That is a really lovely thing to do. So Rosemary, having lost her son-in-law, was it 19 years ago? Under horrible circumstances. Let's not go there, gang. She wrote a letter of thanks to the train driver. Because of him, they finally had closure. God damn. Ooh, wow. Anyway, there's your links. The links are up in the... I'll put it up here. What do we got? Here we go. Look, I'm being bold. There's your link. And you can come and join me on the show. And we can come and see your little charming face. Scotty, come and join us. It'd be nice if you do. That would be really good. There. So there we are. I'll leave it up for a little bit, and you can come on if you want. So that was that. So this all stemmed from me having been triggered yesterday. being surprised that I was triggered, embarrassed that I was triggered, and then having to cope and deal with it and process it and go, no, you know what, Russie, it's okay. It's okay. You're just human. You're doing the best you can. He's arrived, ladies and gentlemen. He has arrived. The world salutes. You know him as Scott Lyons. He knows himself as Fat Scotty. He's on the house. Hey?
How are you?
I'm very good. Lovely studio you're in today.
Yes, this is the commonly known as the Ford Fusion Suite. Dad's got leather chairs, look, if nothing else.
Oh, come on. You're showing off. Wipe easy chairs. Always important at our age. Now, what's been going on with you, fella? What's going on?
Well, since we last spoke, I've been made redundant 3 times. Started a new evening show on a radio station, so nowhere near as classy as Longie on his national station, but going 6 days a week on a station in Staffordshire and Cheshire, and dealing with my dad, who's currently in hospital battling a number of ailments. But other than that, we're all doing well. I thought I'd pop in anyway.
Well. It's all going well. That's the main thing.
That's right. Yeah, that's right.
No, right. Let's start again. You've been, since we last spoke.
Yes.
You've been made redundant 3 times.
Oh, yes.
Do you want to talk about it? Because I'd love to hear about it.
See, most people outside of radio, as you will know, will have a side hustle or a day job, a 9-to-5 job, because radio is the world's best job that will never make you any money. I found out
back in the day, it made us fortunes, but that was then. This is now. You know,
that's right.
Long time ago.
Yeah, it was. So my main job in October, I was made redundant from. So had a few weeks off looking for different jobs. One popped up. I thought, yeah, this is great. Started a job at the end of November into the second week of December, and the guy that was leaving decided he wasn't. So they said, thanks, mate, you're on probation, you're down the road. So working, doing normal sort of event hosting radio up through Christmas, sort of tided us over. Started another job in January, and it wasn't quite the job I was expecting. So we said, yeah, thanks very much. And they said, down the road you go. So I'm due to start another job next Monday. Yeah. But thankfully, the job the radio job I'm doing now is much better, because you and I spoke about, I was working at a station in up to September, and it was a very acrimonious split. And it sent me to a very strange and not dark place, but it was I did a lot of sort of thinking about what was going on, but was then made an offer by a radio station that wanted me 12 months prior. So in the end I said, look, it needs to be the right thing, we need to be on the same page here. And they went, look, do as little or as much as you want to, we're not here to give you a hard time, as long as you're enjoying the work, that's the most important thing. So that's where we sort of got to. So yeah, it's been very strange. So I've had a sort of few months off, just sort of get my head together. Dad's, as you and I spoke.
Let's come on to your dad. Let's come on to your dad in a sec, because as you're being so open, something I'd quite like to explore. And tell me to get lost if you don't want to do it. It's absolutely fine. You had an acrimonious split, and they can be really. I'm not going to keep using the word mental health. I think everyone's exhausted from this, to be honest with you. But they can be really exhausting to deal with.
It was very, very exhausting. It was. I'll try and keep it as generic and vague as I can. So
yes, please,
for those people who are watching, may know who it is.
Don't want to get sued by anybody. Thank you.
It was, yeah. So all that was going on, it was you promised the earth. I mean, you've seen it yourself when you work for these large media groups. Promised the earth. You sort of worked into the ground. You're doing the very best content you can. You're hosting the best shows you possibly can. Other people aren't pulling the weight, but all I'm interested in is me doing the best content I can, because it's what I've been trained to do, and it's what I want to do.
And you're also, I'm going to jump in, you're also a professional, and I don't mean just you, but if you're doing that job, if you don't view it as a professional going, I'm not interested in other people's opinions. If I think I did a bad job, I did a bad job. And if I think I did a good job, I did. You know, we are our sternest critics.
Well, and this is it. You're constantly trying to second guess yourself. For people who've never worked in TV and radio, you would go through appraisals. We go through what they call Snoop sessions, which is a very, very negative word, in my opinion. So they will take your line manager will take a section of a show that you've broadcast. They will then forensically break it down, not always in what we call the feedback sandwich of positive, negative, positive. It's usually that's crap, that's crap, that's crap. And then most of these
Scotty, can I just ask you, what do you think you were doing? Because this is very disappointing, and quite frankly, not the sort of standard we expect.
Dear boy, I'd never had the pleasure or displeasure of that certain individual.
You dodged that freaking bullet, as did I. Thank
you know
God.
what? I think many people who had worked in radio, and if you work in certain industries, they're very insular places. So whether you're a bus driver, whether you work in, I don't know, in the building industry, it's a very small world.
It looks big worlds till you're there, and then everybody knows everybody else. And
well, that's the thing. So when I sort of split from this station, I mean, I sort of, it was deeply upsetting because I enjoyed the job I was doing, but sometimes you've got to make these difficult decisions. And as my wife said to me, she said, look, you've been busting your ass for the last God knows how many months. You're getting no further forward. You're doing the best possible job you can, but they really don't give a monkeys about you. And when you sit down and you think about it, and you think about it hard about, their opinions of you, nobody wants to be criticised or thought ill of. But for me, I took it very personally. So I sort of made almost a snap decision on that day, there and then. That's it. I'm finished. I'm not doing this anymore. Thanks very much. There's your keys back. And I just left on the Sunday. Gets home and I thought, what in God's name have you just done?
What have I just done, you fool?
Yeah. But thinking about it and having sort of had a couple of weeks to mull it over again, most industries are very, very small and insular places. The following day of me leaving, I had a phone call from a lovely guy called Dave Johnson, who works at Blue Sky Radio up in Staffordshire and Cheshire. And he said, look, we heard that you've now become a free agent. I said, bloody hell, that was quick, which is usually the same in most industries. Good news or bad news travels fast. He said, look, once you've got your head together, if you want to come and have a talk to me, he said, we've tried to get you on board before. Will you come and at least have a chat to me once you feel in the right headspace? So, yeah, of course, lovely. And I just put the phone down thinking, nah, it's never going to happen. And then a couple of weeks later, he phoned me again just to check in, and which I thought was a really nice touch. He said, I'm not here to sort of bust you. How are you getting on? How are you feeling? Are you okay? And I then said to him, actually, not feeling very good about it. I thought that with most sort of radio gigs, you think this is going to be the one. It's not. And he said, look, have a think about it. If you're in the right headspace, give me a ring back. And having thought through it again and looked at the profile of the station and looked about how I would fit in, because I've got to look at whether I'm going to fit in with the station as well as them fitting with me.
Yes, you do.
And you go, right, do all the pros and cons. Is that going to be the right thing for me? So I then rang him back a week later and I said, look, what is it you need me to do? He said, we're looking for initially one weekend show. He said, but we've got plans for something else. Anyway, long story short, I ended up doing 6 days a week and I'm still doing there.
Brilliant.
So
brilliant.
For me personally, I mean, Nigel, you just hit the nail on the head. He was with a station in Dorset, lots of listeners, loads of compliments, loads of followers. And then the bosses called me for a really negative meeting and said, something walked. And that, as you'll know yourself, Russ, I mean, you've always been on record saying to you it was just a job. For other people, for me personally, it was everything. And I'm now in a position where my guys at Blue Sky are lovely seasoned broadcasters. They know the patch they're broadcasting to. They know the listeners. They know the presenters. They've got a cracking team. And most of all, it's all geared up towards being, are you okay with what you're doing? If you can't manage the workload you've got, tell us. There's nothing there that we are going to moan about you.
Let me just go back on something that you just said, because I've always said, that my radio work, 20 years at Capital and various other places, is just a job. And it was just a job. And I'll tell you why I treated it like that. I didn't want it to define me. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it absolute sense, yeah.
I thought I'm having a fabulous time. They're paying me extremely well. I'm loving every moment. I loved every moment of 20 years. It was huge fun, but I didn't want it to be that's who I am, because it wasn't who I was. That was a role that I played for that time slot. And then I went on and did my other things as a writer, as a copywriter and advertising, doing
But
other
strangely
things.
though, Russ, strangely, to people like me and to millions of other people that listen to what was Europe's biggest commercial radio show with you, Chris Tarrant, Cara, and all the other guys that worked on Capital Breakfast then, when local radio meant local. And let's be honest, and I know you're sort of very you're very modest about it. You know, you guys owned the capital city of the United Kingdom, ultimately across there. But and you are defined by what you did, because we always look at you as Russ Kane, broadcaster, not just the flying eye guy, but as a broadcaster on Capital that defined the way that all radio stations then went on to look for. Because I worked at a station in Birmingham that
You're
you
very
bought.
kind.
No, let's just say this. It is. But
It's a weird thing, I split my time now, as you know, between being a celebrant, between writing and broadcasting. That I try and split it up. But when you're attending a funeral and the funeral director comes up and says, "Is that you?" It just makes me laugh, because I stopped doing it 21 years ago. I mean, it was 21 years ago I stopped. So it's very flattering, and it's really very, very nice.
But do you find that your broadcasting background has helped you as a celebrant being able to present at these events in a constructive and sort of emotionally packaged way?
It's an excellent question. I think one looks at one's skills. This is not patting oneself on the back. It's like, what am I good at? Would I be a good Formula One driver? No, I'd be rubbish. Would I be a good builder? No, I'd be absolutely appalling. I don't know what I'm doing. I can write, and I've written all my life, all my professional life, and I can speak. And being a celebrant requires being able to write, to construct the eulogies that are meaningful and not just, platitudes, but actually mean something, and to conduct the service, to be able to speak in public, which is never, although in real life I'm actually quiet. If I'm performing, it's a different headspace, as you would say. So it's an occupation whereby I can combine two things that I hugely enjoy and that I'm reasonably good at, which is writing and public speaking. So yes, it kind of helped me, but it's very different. I mean, it obviously it's very serious, but et cetera, et cetera. Liz also said something. I mean, you've touched on stuff. It was organic how it happened. This is the thing that radio stations and I think media simply don't understand. What happened with the breakfast show? They threw us together. We didn't know each other. It's completely random. Tarrant was doing a little lunchtime show. Cara was brought in because she knew some folks and would be fun. John Davis, who now lives in France, was our newsreader at the time before the late, much missed Howard Hughes came on board. And I was inherited really from Graham Dean's show, which I'd done for, I don't know, 10 months or a year or something. I can't remember exactly how much it was, right? And the joke is, Scotty, that we did, I think, 9 pilot shows to see how this would work.
Yeah.
They were shit. I mean, shit doesn't cover. They were just terrible. They were awful. We had no charisma. We had no cohesion. There was just nothing, because they tried to constrain us. And the moment they just said, "Oh, sod it, let these idiots do what they want," that was it. So in 20 years, and this is the truth, in 20 years, we never had a production meeting, ever, for our show. Never. We never had a crossword. Seriously, 20 years, 5 days a week, I never had an argument there. Never had a crossword. Never had a falling out. Ever. Not talking with management. I'm talking about with our team.
Yeah.
Because we all trusted each other. And somehow out of that utter nonsense, we got 4 million listeners a day. 4 million, as you said. It controlled London. It was unprecedented. And then the weird thing was, and this is what always makes me laugh, you know, it makes me think of the Beatles when they were kids. And then all these academics will say, well, what John is really saying here. And I'm thinking they must have just been sitting there, you know, well, that rhymes with that rhymes with that. That's quite a nice little word, you know, not really taking it desperately seriously. We certainly never did. And they'd sent in all these, like America would send all these people to study us like we were lab rats. Coming in from New York, especially from California, the big, huge stations there. Australia would send teams in, study these guys. I'm like, you can't study what we do. You can't replicate it. You can either do it or you can't. But you can't pretend to be me or pretend to be Chris or pretend to be Cara. It's horrible.
And this is a lot of stuff. We've gone through these sort of you know, conditioning workshops, they call them. So you go along to you go along to these big conditioning workshops with big groups, and they sit you down. So right, here is the breakfast show that we want you to be, and we go, all right then.
You can't do that.
You can't emulate the chemistry that you've got, natural chemistry. And it doesn't matter whether you're working in a small community station or whether you're working on a big national station. I listen to some of these, the big networks now, and they are absolutely awful.
Let me ask you a question. I'm going to ask you a question. I'm going to act as devil's advocate. We're not kids anymore, right? No. You're younger than you're younger than me. And so I apply the same kind of argument as I do when people go, oh, the Brits, I said, mate, it's not aimed at you. It's not aimed at me. I'm not interested in the Brits. I'm not going to watch the Brits. I don't know who the people are. I don't care who they are. Enjoy, have fun. I'm not going to criticize it because it's stupid. Why would I criticize it? It's not for me. It doesn't interest me. It doesn't concern me. You know, there's certain people, I'm not going to name their names. Is it because we've all got older and we don't like the music and we don't like the way it's presented? But that's part of it.
I like some of the music. I just think that the music industry is controlled, and the music industry is fabricated to sell records in a certain way. Now,
it's only about money. Come on, Scotty. The music industry, it's the music business. 95% business, 5% music. It's only about money. Music industry.
I was talking about something. Yeah, there's a song by Limmy the Funkin' Chocolates, and back in 1997, I was having this discussion yesterday with a colleague of mine. Do you remember the Cook Report with Roger Cook on Central TV?
I do. Yes,
now,
very much.
I think it was Mike Stock from Stockhagen and Waterman, put together a band called the Mojams, and they released this song that was a cover of Limmy and the Funkin' Chocolate, and they showed how backhand the music industry to get any song to number one. They said you can get any song to number one as long as the right people are making the right money. And they actually put this there. They were going around to record shops at the time, which is where people were doing it. Record shops. They were going to meetings with big music industry moguls, and they were saying, right, this is how it goes. Many brown envelopes were exchanging, and the rest of it was just like, oh, wow. Lisa, you are my absolute hero. Sister was at the Brits, packed at the rest on the red carpet with her boss, filmed by Charlie XCX. One thing I want to say about that, I did watch the Brits because I was hoping there was going to be a Mick Fleetwood a la Sam Fox moment, but none actually ensued.
God! Oh, jeez.
I didn't really rate Jack Whitehall. I think the comedy that was being written for him was very much was too staged. What I found quite offensive was how ITV had spoken to Charlie XCX. It appeared on stage in an outfit that was deemed inappropriate because she wasn't wearing any undergarments. If you want to wear what you like,
she was in a hurry when she left home. She could have been in a hurry.
Yeah, I
could have been washing day. She's thinking, I'm on a national. Oh, blast! I've just put a dark wash up. Okay.
Yeah. Go and find a vest, and this is the whole thing. Is the media companies are trying to control the artist and control them to the nth degree. And I think Longie mentioned something on Monday's show. I caught up with it yesterday, where people are victim blaming. I think there was something off the back of the Trump Zelensky conversation you were having. Somebody had written in saying it was there were various psychological elements. It was like blaming the victim when they were attacked. And I felt, you know, for the Brits, and for the music industry and ITV to chastise a musical artist when considering what the amount of stuff that they peddled out and their reputation of recent times, I don't really think they've got any place to start complaining and moaning at them. But going back a step to the Brits, I don't enjoy most of the music. It's too niche for my liking. But at the same time, it sells records and it sells, you know, it makes people lots of money. Does it appear on the stations that I work on? We play some of the music, but we use them as tokens, like Sabrina Carpenter, Teddy Swims. But what we don't go down is the full sort of street music that seems to be of the way of the modern parlance with various F, C, B, and W bombs in there. So it's not for me. I would like to have seen a Brit Award, a Brit Award Gold or Gold Brit Awards for established artists, such as those who are in heritage charts. I know there's I think Mike Reed, former Radio 1 breakfast DJ, he does a station called Heritage Chart Radio. But I'd like to see the music industry recognise established artists who, you know, who have got longevity at level 42 and, you know, Madonna, Belinda Carlisle, all these people that have shaped all of the songs now, because most of the songs you've got today are sampled from old music.
You know,
and they take samples. You know it. Well, I know it. It's just how it is. But the millennials will fail to see that when you know, one of the biggest laughs we had a couple of 3 years ago was all the millennials said, "God, this who's this Kate Bush woman? What a wonderful song that is in Stranger Things. It'll, you know, it's great." You think, yeah, the song was out 30 years ago. You know, what's wrong with you?
Well, that there is no sense of history, and there's no point getting worked up about it. There is no point getting worked up about it. I didn't think we were going to go down this rabbit hole, but it's pretty damn fascinating, quite frankly. I'm going to recommend a film again that I saw. There was only one. Well, there were 2 screenings last Sunday in a tiny little niche cinema in Crouch End, part of London. It's called Immediate Family. And it's session.
Oh, you mentioned that Monday, didn't you? You mentioned that Monday show.
God,
yeah.
I can't. Not just because I know the guy who made it, and I'm friends with his wife, and I was friends with his wife's mom. I used to stay with her in Los Angeles. The great Shirley Green. I miss her so much. But it's an amazing. If you love that music right the way through, it's an incredibly fascinating documentary film. And you think they played on all of this?
Yeah.
Bloody hell.
You don't realise, and this is where, for me, musical history is absolutely key. So when you have got the Brit Awards and you're selling millions of records, it's great, wonderful, but you need, as an artist, as I do as a broadcaster, to understand where the history of your industry has started, where it is now, and where it's going. I mean, you know, for me, 10 years time, you know, radio I don't think will exist in the same way it's done now, and it's been absolutely, you know, dissected to death, and I just find it really sad the way it's gone.
I'm going to ask you this.
Yeah.
All right. I have for years. I'm a huge fan of local radio. Huge fan. Because I think people, like we've tried to create with the little midday show, which runs on 0 budget.
Yeah.
And it's just because people seem to enjoy it because it's light and you can have your say. There's no censorship.
Yeah.
Whether I agree with you or not. So I've always loved local radio because I think people need a sense of community. That's what we've tried to establish here. It was always my goal. Little sense of community. It doesn't have to be a huge community, just a community. Somewhere that you feel safe and that's what local radio was. And I've said for years, with some of the decisions made for a start by the BBC, the way they have, in my mind, this is just my opinion, deliberately destroyed local radio so they can lower the listening figures and they can go, see, look, it's not worth doing it. That's all we've got. Because some of the decisions made for local radio on the BBC are mind-boggling. Mind-boggling.
I am
just unbelievable.
I cannot believe, and this is the problem with our industry regulator. We have Ofcom that regulates TV, radio, internet service providers, and anything to do with communication. Yeah. the BBC at the moment are self-policing. The only time that Ofcom get involved if they are deemed not to have dealt with the issue, and this is where you set a dangerous precedent. Is that for me personally to allow the BBC to completely I'm trying to use my words very carefully, to completely crush BBC local radio networks across the country. They thought they were doing the army effect, which is to break something down, then rebuild it into something better. And what they've done is completely killed it, because all they've done now is they've got rid of seasoned journalists. And this is where, for me, the BBC was always held in the highest regard. You employed journalists, broadcast journalists, to present shows on a local radio network who were trained to deal with the matters that matter the most to the listeners, and to have a journalistic approach to providing a platform. Nowadays, we will get rid of all the broadcast journalists. They've done it here in the West Midlands. They will now stick a pop idol person on a breakfast show, and on you go. And I think Nicky Horn, who's one of the best broadcasters I think we've ever had in this country.
Oh, he's rubbish.
He's wonderful, love him.
Robert, do you know Nicky and I have been friends since we were 14.
Yes, he speaks very highly of you.
14 years old.
Speaks very highly. You weathered better than he has.
When we get together, we still make each other laugh so much about silly family stuff and stuff. It's like we're just transformed. The moment we sit down, the two of us, we're transformed to being little kids again. It's just absolutely lovely. Now, let me say this. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt, but there's two interesting points. No, here's the thing. And I'm so glad you leapt on. Thanks, Scotty. Liz Saul, who, as you know, works for BBC Radio 3 Counties and is a journalist and is a mighty brain box as well. Actually, the measurements are pan-digital now. I don't know what the bloody hell that means. And the local radio areas are thriving. Then we've got Paul Claridge saying this. BBC are killing local radio, although I would say that Becky Want, no idea, does a fantastic job on national I don't know what this is, making it sound like a local show no matter where you are listening. She's managed to keep a community feel. Other than that, BBC Radio is a shadow of what it once was. And then we go back to the queen of BBC 3 Counties. I'm involved with some of the editorial, and it feels like it's appealing to more audiences, even people who don't listen to it. So you and Liz, diametrically opposing views. My view is I know.
Liz works in a different area to me, though. So I listen to what happens in central England, so across BBC Radio Shropshire, WM, and further east and west of that area. The current editor of that radio area is a former commercial radio program director, and I have worked for them. That's the one. 3 Counties. Give my worst to Andy Collins. Tell him to get off the golf course. But the guys who are now running the West Midlands.
I do that is. Go on.
He's Andy
Don't
Collins.
Say who it is. Carry on. Doesn't matter. Carry on.
He's a presenter with Liz. He's not the guy that works at WM.
Oh, right.
No. Andy Collins is great. He does all the warm-ups for Anton Deck. But my point with WM is, yes, there's some great people working in these areas, and they've got retained some great staff. The problem is, if you listen to some of the programming, they revert to type. I mean, let's just go to. I think there was one show last week. I just happened to dip in because there was the M6 had all gone to pot. So the station you listen to for travel, your WM, and they were talking about dogs defecating on the path. Now, I messaged one of my mates who works at WM. I said, "Oh, is that the best you can do?" He said, "It's a slow news day." He said, "We've been given an editorial instruction." He said, "The best way to get people on the phones is talk about dogs defecating on there."
Failing that. No, I get it. Failing that, and it's always a joke that Phil, Dave, and I have. Failing that, what's your favourite biscuit to dunk into a cup of tea? And people outside of the industry going, "What the bloody hell are you talking about?" But you will know on a slow day. You know what, gang? I was having a cup of tea the other day, and I didn't like the way my bit. What's your favourite bit? Jesus Christ! Everybody pours in with their biscuit suggestions. It's like, how bored are you?
But if you like me as an analyst,
potholes. Yes, Liz, you're right. Potholes.
Well, this is it, Liz. And I've listened to some of the stuff on Three Counties Radio, and I like their much more. How can I put it? It always comes across as a constructive journalistic approach, because you've got journalists who are working in the background. Where at the moment in WM, they're not.
I'm not blowing smoke up her posterior, but Liz is very serious. But I mean, she's fun, but it's very, she's serious. She takes it very seriously. She doesn't want to talk biscuit and dog poo and it. But here's so in Surrey, sinkholes, but in Kent. Well, if you lived in Kent, because you're seeing what the mainstream media, the ghastly MSM, is not reporting. You're seeing what's happening on the beaches. It is not what's in the papers.
No.
Not a fraction of what's in the papers. If you saw what the people on the Kent coast are seeing, you'd be up in arms. I tell you, I probably mean it literally. I kind of mean it literally. So I'm going to we got to go because we're almost out of time. Well, my time is my own. Here's the thing. I want to go back to something else about criticism, because you raised an important point. You didn't like the criticism. I'm putting it in neutral terms, all right? It's not about you. Not about you, Scott Lyons. You didn't like the criticism. Criticism, in my view, if it's constructive, and you go, do you know what? I hadn't thought of that. That's great, right? I have this with my agent on books, for example. I mean, we get into huge debates, like 4-hour meetings about stuff, right? And I don't sit there going, oh, I'm thinking, right, that's interesting. I hadn't thought of that. And I'll look at that and etc. But if it's just rude and negative, what's the point? Well,
there isn't any. That was it with me. It was got to the point where, I was being criticised for not being at an event that I wasn't contracted to be at, and I offered to be there. They said, "I don't need you." I turned up anyway because I was going anyway, and then it all sort of descended into chaos from there. But for me personally, I'm always of the opinion every day is a school day. I can learn and do things better. I want people to constructively criticise what I'm doing or to coach me. Coaching's great. There's ways and means in which coaching's great. If you can always or constructively criticise without you even feeling as though you are being criticised in the first place, and by being coached and by being modelled into a better you, that's fine. I have no issue with that. It's when you've got any organisation, business, industry that just takes their workers for granted, keep putting more on them because they feel as though, well, the more and more the arrogance is that they'll, no matter what we say or do to them, they're not going to leave. And
of course, because it's dead man's shoes. It's dead man's shoes. And it's a revolting phrase, but in all of these things, it's like you don't have to look any further than Philip Schofield. Philip Schofield's demise, whether you agree with it or you violently disagree with it, I'm not going to get into that now, has been brilliant for some other people because, whoa, they've risen like cream to the top. Whether they deserve to be there, well, it's up for you to say. That's how it is. And also, if you're all working together, it makes for a better team as well. Scott Lyons, you legend, come back and see us. Please don't be a stranger.
Yeah, we'll
love having you. I love having you on the show anytime at all. You know that.
Thanks very much indeed.
Take care. And well done for bouncing through. Keep bouncing. That's what I say. Keep bouncing. Scott Lyons, I'm so glad he joined. That's so nice. What a lovely fellow. Well, that's it. I didn't know what we were going to talk about today, and it's turned into a cracking show. I thought so, and I thoroughly enjoyed it. That's all that matters. If you enjoyed it as well, that's good. Right. I've got a dog to walk, which means I'm going to have to wake her up. Wish me luck. I'm trying not to get bit. Doggy dementia. Don't even go there. Be back on Friday with live from America, Jonathan Baz and the fabulous and fragrant Chantal Rickard's OBE. Until then, try and stay out of trouble. I won't. Bye-bye.